Hello, Salvadoran Warrior here. Today, I'm about to talk about another class mod character. This class mod character is actually really interesting and really unique. If you're like me and you're sick and tired of using the same old vessel with the same old healing skills, being in the third or fourth position, um, you might want to give this class mod character a try because she's also a healer, but there's something unique about her. It's mostly has to do with her stress levels because the higher her stress levels, the powerful her combat moves are. And keep in mind when it does reach 100, she'll only get a negative quirk out of this um, due to the fact that, she's possessed by a certain demon. But if she's not hitting those stress levels, this demon and her mortal self are working hand in hand together. It's just that you need to manage that. So I guess you're wondering what's the name of this character. Over here, you see the title right here. And of course the YouTube title of this character is The Keeper. A character that had a tragic end, but a rebirth to a curse. Now, before we continue, please like and subscribe, all that blah 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 blah. I try not to pressure people with the whole subscription stuff. For this is just some things I want to get off my chest since I've been playing this game for quite some time, and the class mods is what made it even better, and I just couldn't stop playing it. And I just figured I'll make a video out of it. With that aside, we usually talk about the base stats, resistances, combat skills, camping skills, a little bit of her trinkets if I feel like it, and strategies. But other than that, let's get on with the review. So, before we even get started, one last thing. If you really want to see what she's like on the field, I'll leave a timestamp either in the middle of the screen right here or in the description. Doesn't matter. It's gonna be on both places from now on. I'm tired of putting it on one spot, and I'm afraid no one's looking at that timestamp. So I figured, let me just sneak it in this video for everyone to see. So without further ado, let's talk about the Keeper. The Keeper is a class mod character that has a decent stat for crit, which is 9, pretty good, and the speed's at 6, which is also interesting. I know I had an issue about healers having like high speed, but I didn't really care because I don't know, it's usually a preference. But I'll talk about that in a future video. What you do need to know is that she can get her HP pretty high, and her protection can be high if it wants to, based on the trinkets, of course. If you get like good quirks, you can even make it even better. But what makes her super unique and kind of similar to a tank is her resistances. As you can see, she has pretty high stun with a bonus of the positive quirks. Same thing with the blights, but her disease is at 40, move resistance is at 90, and debuff is at 100. So that's really good. What isn't good is that she can still bleed. You know how I feel about death blows. It's always the same with every character. And you don't want her disarming traps all the time. 70% is not really a good number you want to sit on when it comes to disarming traps. But if you got no choice, roll them dice, boys, because you may or may not disarm it. With that aside, it's a decent number to make her a tank, and you can do more things about it. But for now, this is okay. This is really, really good. And you're still probably wondering about these crit numbers. Don't worry. We'll get to it very soon. In fact, no, we'll actually get to it right now because we're on our next segment, the combat skills. But before I get to it, base stats is okay. Resistances is extremely good. All I gotta say about that. Now, her combat skills. So her first combat skill is Riff. Riff is a melee move that can be used in positions 1, 2, and 3, and can hit the enemy's positions from 1, 2, and 3. She has an accuracy base of 105, and the move does pretty good damage, and the crit mod is 8%. On hit, she will inflict bleed onto the enemy of 3 points for 3 rounds. Based on the stress levels, however, she'll add an extra amount of bleed to that point for 3 rounds. So, for an example, if you're at 25, she'll start bleeding at 1, 50, 2, and of course, the max 75 will be 3. And once she does this move, it'll stress her out for 3 points. It's a pretty good melee move, and the bleeds will be really, really, really good if you manage to get the hit. Accuracy 105 is pretty low in my opinion, but it's also pretty decent too. As long as it's not hitting 100 or 90, we're good. With that aside, it's a pretty good melee move if you have her in position 3. So it's not terrible. It's pretty good. Now, the next move I'm going to talk about is something I'm going to try to put in all together in one section, because this is actually her bread and butter, and it's what makes her very, very unique. Before I talk about the meditation move, let me tell you about this move, Rebirth. Rebirth is a combat skill that can be used in positions 2, 3, and 4, and she'll heal 15% of the max HP. She'll give him 2 additional HP based on stress levels. So 25, 2, 50, 4, max 6. And once used, she'll get inflicted with 3 points of stress. Now, this is really good if you're healing tanks, because when the tanks get healed, they'll get the benefit of that big heal. However, when it comes to squishy characters, they'll get a decent amount of numbers for a heal. It won't be as magnificent as the tanks, but the Rebirth for regular healer characters that will get this heal, pretty decent stuff. So it's not too bad. It's really, really good, and probably her best move when it comes to healing the team. One of the best moves in healing the team. Now, the next move is where you want to start balancing some things out from here on out. Convalence is a combat skill that can be used in positions. Well, it can be used in any position, and on self, she'll heal for 7 points for 1 round. She'll cure herself. She'll de-stress herself of negative 10 points, and if she's inflicted with horror, she can cure horror from herself. Now, before you ask me, yes, this move can stack, so you'll get some big numbers based on the heal. But at the same time, you need to think one step ahead of this move. So let's say you're at Death's Door, or you're about to get to Death's Door, you need to be ready for it. Because by the time you get hit, you get to Death's Door, and you get that stress. Next turn, you're going to get that heal back. And depending on how many times you stack it, may be really, really, really high. With that aside, the stress heal is also pretty good, because when you get to max 75 of stress, you want to start wanting to tone that a little bit so you can balance the stress levels with the keeper stress. You never want to just let it go to 100, because again, you'll get inflicted with that bad virtue, and you have no control over the keeper. And even if you're thinking to yourself, well, that's who cares? She can just heal on random. Who cares? It actually matters a lot because she can also hurt your team and stuff. And you don't want that. You don't want that at all. With that aside, this is going to be the move that you're never going to unequip. You're going to keep it with you at all times, right next to this move. This move is optional. In fact, everything that you see here is going to be optional from here on out. Just make sure you have these two. I don't care what you do, just don't go into a dungeon without having this, okay? Now let's move on to the next one. Demon's Yoke is a range combat skill that can be used in positions 2, 3, and 4 and can hit the enemy's position from 1, 2, and 3. It's an accuracy base of 115, and it does okay damage with a crit of 7%. Now on hit, the enemies will get stunned, but based on the stress levels, 25 plus 20%, 50 plus 40%, max 75 plus 60% of stun chance. So there you go. On hit, the target will be hit with a debuff of negative 20 dodge, and on the self, she'll get inflicted with plus 3 points of stress, like always. Yep, Damon's Yoke is really, really good. I love using this move a lot. It reminds me of the Vessel's like candle-like move, only this time you get that negative 20 dodge, and most of these enemies in the champion dungeons have way too much dodge numbers, so having this in your inventory is very beneficial. You get to say to those demons, hey, I'm coming for you. Once you give them that debuff, and you give them that debuff, they'll get scared, and when they get scared, you're now the threat. With that aside, Damon's Yoke is pretty good. I actually would recommend using this move as well, right next to the combat melee skill right here. But the next combat skill, you may want to take it with a grain of salt. Phantom Wail is a combat skill that can be used in any positions, and on the self will give herself plus 3 points of stress. She'll buff a target with a 75% damage reflection. However, the debuff target is 5% chance of random target chance, meaning some of the enemies may or may not get a random debuff. I don't know what that random debuff will be, but it will be significant when that debuff hits. At the same time, I can't really bet on damage reflection. I can never get it off. Get your penis jokes out. I get it. Can't get it off. Just so you know, when it does connect and you get that damage reflection, it's not significant. And, sometimes you'll see 1 point, 2 points of damage being reflected back. And I just think it's not worth it. Even if the damage reflection might be good on paper, it's just not as good. I would pass. If it's locked and you can't afford it, that's okay. You can put your gold into something else. Just don't do it for Phantom Wail. It's probably the weakest move in the Keeper's inventory. Now the next one isn't so bad. Calacofi is a combat skill that can be used in positions 2, 3, and 4, and it's an AoE. It's an AoE move that can hit all positions. It's a range ability of an accuracy base of 110. It's pretty weak, with a weak quick crit of negative 2%, but based on your stress, can give the move a +2 damage boost, which is at 25, 50, 4, 75 max, 6. So you're gonna see some pretty good damage based on her stress level. And if the enemy is stunned, it'll crit 100% of the time. On use, of course, she'll get 3 points of stress. This is good. I remember I had like almost an entire part of the enemy stunned, like 4. That's because I was using another class mod character that stunned all the enemies all at once. And once I got the crit going, oh my god, it was magnificent. I felt like the keeper was actually doing some damage. But that's not what she's supposed to be doing. But if you see the opportunity of some poor enemy stunned, don't be afraid to use this move. Not only will you inflict damage onto the other side of the team, but one special lucky enemy will get the crit. And once they get the crit, it's gonna feel good. Now, here's the downside with the whole crit. When the crit happens, she'll get her plus 3 points of stress, but since she hits for crit, she'll get a -2 stress heal because she got the crit. So take it as it is with that. It's good that she can get the crit, but it could be kind of bad if you're trying to get her stress levels up to somewhere around 50, for an example. Just keep that in mind. It's good, but may mess up your stress levels. That's what I'm trying to say. The last combat skill, Sacrifice, is a combat skill that can be used in any position and heals the entire team for 4 points. Now, during this time, she guards everybody. And I mean everybody. It has a cooldown for 3 rounds. She'll get inflicted with horror, and she'll give herself 5 points of stress. And, oh yeah, she'll block 1 hit, and she'll heal for 3 points on herself for 2 rounds. Now, if you use the meditation thing afterwards, you can stack it, and you'll see some big numbers on the keeper, because by the time she does Sacrifice, she's gonna be inflicted with lots of punishment. And I mean lots of punishment. But this is also the quickest way to get your stress levels to around 50 or 60 or sometimes 75 in the beginning part of the dungeon. I mean, real quick, real easy. It's also really, really, really good. I love using this move. If I want her stress levels to increase like that, this is the move I use. Now, here is some word of advice. If you're using combat characters that have a repose, do not activate Sacrifice. No matter how desperate things get, just, don't do it, because you'll be wasting their repose move, meaning there'll be lost potential of damage, and I don't know, you'll just have a missed opportunity time, if that's even a thing. Another thing, be careful in using Sacrifice, because even though it's cool that she gets to protect the party and everything, she can die very, very easily because of Sacrifice. So please, please, please use this move wisely, but at the same time, use this move too. Overall, you can do this, which is really good. You can do this, which is still good. Or this, if you have her only in position 3, because these 2 other moves can also be used in positions 4. And if you want to do this, that's fine too. There is a lot of good things you can do, and it seems like her strongest positions will always be positions 2, 3, and 4. Mostly 3 and 4. I recommend you have her only in positions 3 and 4, and she can do a lot in positions 3 and 4, to where the vessel can only do so much in positions 3 and 4. And if you have her in positions 2 and 1, you'll have to change up her loadout on purpose, so you can do the moves that you want her to do in positions 2 and 1. If you have the keeper switch to position 1 because of movements, you can just have her use sacrifice and safely reposition everybody in their appropriate positions. And if you play Darkest Dungeon long enough, you will know how dangerous it is to reposition every hero in their right position, only to waste a turn and get hit with more things. It's bullshit, right? But with sacrifice, you could do that safely now while she takes all the punishment. Just be mindful that you have to get things done quickly before she gets inflicted with more damage, more stress, to where she hits 100. You can be in a really, really bad position. So, what about her combat skill? Her camping skills. Her camping skills are probably the most unique things about her. And if you're ever caught in these situations, like the one I mentioned, the camping skills are the big answer to her solutions. Just so you know, all these mod characters, they have the same basic camping skill, but it's always the 4 unique camping skills that makes them unique out of all of the Darkest Dungeon characters. So let's get started with the first one, Baneful Pact. Baneful Pact is a camping skill that can be given to one companion. They'll get the buff of having plus 25% damage with a sacrifice of getting debuffed on their HP by negative 20 max. They'll also get stressed out with 5 points. These buffs last for 4 battles. It's pretty good. If you throw it on a tank that can do DPS, like the Leper for an example, sacrificing HP for the Leper won't be so bad. And you'll even stack it with some of his other camping skills that gives him, accuracy and all that whatnot. But for now, this is really good. I highly recommend it. And giving them plus 5 stress, not too bad. So I wouldn't worry. And it's cheap. Time cost 3. Cheap means good. The next combat skill is Martyr's Touch. Martyr's Touch is a really expensive time cost 4 with a chance to be inflicted with a bleed of 1 point for 12 rounds. However, for the companion, they'll get healed for 25% of their HP, and their HP will be increased by 25% max. And if they're inflicted with a morality debuff, she can remove that morality debuff. This buff lasts for 4 battles. It's interesting, and if you get inflicted with bleed and you're done camping, you just give yourself a band-aid and you'll be ready to go. So there's no negative in using Martyr's Touch. I think it's pretty good. If you see your companions damaged and food didn't really do the job, or you just want to max out their HP, or if you're playing with the morality debuff on and they get inflicted with a morality debuff, this is your time to use this, remove the morality debuff, and continue on with the dungeon. So this move is really good. For a time cost 4, however, I always complain that most camping skills need to have extra stuff for me to justify the time cost 4, but I think this is justified. It's alright. The next camping skill is Self-Exorcism. Self-Exorcism is a time cost 3 where she can stress heal herself for negative 25 stress. If inflicted, negative 25 stress plus. It gets added on. All companions, however, if a religious character is in your party, they'll get inflicted with a plus 10 stress, and if your companion is not religious, may have a 50-50 chance of not getting plus 10 stress. Now, when she gets inflicted, and trust me, when you use the keeper, she will get inflicted. this is what you're gonna have to use from now on out. From here on out, if it's a long dungeon, this is a chance for you to at least get to 70 or 50 when it comes to de-stressing her out. So if she's afflicted with something, not only will she get the negative 25, but she'll get a negative 25 extra of inflicted. So that's a total of negative 50 stress being healed. And I've done it once, and when I got her to 0, everything was fine and dandy. She wasn't inflicted anymore. The only problem was, and this is like the big problem, you have to start all over in developing her stress levels again. So I guess what I'm trying to say is self-exorcism is a good out if you're trying to get rid of an affliction, but you'll have to start all over in her maintaining her stress levels again. So just keep that in mind when using self-exorcism. That's all. The last combat skill. I keep saying that. I keep thinking about combat for some strange reason. The last camping skill is Lonesome Communion. Lonesome Communion is a self-buff only, where she can not only stress heal herself for negative 10, but she gives herself a plus 15 protection. This lasts for 4 battles. A time cost 3 that only gives you those 2 things seems kind of expensive. If this was a time cost 2, I'd have been like, hell yeah, this is really good. Use it all the time. But even though it's a time cost 3, I still say use it all the time. And if you look right here, I already have 2 trinkets that does something to her protection. Now add that with Lonesome Communion, and you can see yourself walking around with 40 protection. Really, really good stuff. You'll actually feel like a tank when you use this, but that doesn't mean you're invincible. Don't think like that. Just, this is only good if you're planning to use sacrifice all the time. Because if you're planning to use sacrifice, this is the move you want to use right now. If you're not planning to use sacrifice, do not use this camping skill. Instead, either use this one, or why not this one? Overall, her camping skills are pretty good. They're never situational. It always seems like you can always throw them out there whenever you get the chance to spend camping points after you're done spending the points to protect yourself from nightmares. This is pretty good. These are like really, really good camping skills. So let's talk about her trinkets finally. Her trinkets are very unique. The ones that I'm using do something to her stress heal and her healings at the same time. And I'm having her wear the silly looking ring that gives her not only HP, but also lots and lots of protection. Here we go. So, if you're planning to do some bleeds, this move is really good to inflict more bleeding. If you're planning to do more of the sacrifice move, I would also recommend using this one as well, especially since you'll benefit the 50% chance of guard duration. It may stress her out even more, but that's okay. That's what you want. You want to stress her out. And that's pretty much all I have to say about her trinkets. I don't really collect much because these things right heal. These things right here, really, really good. Just highly recommend. Finally, what team should she be put in? Well, it doesn't really matter at that point. As long as she's in position 3 or 4, I think she'll do just fine. Like I said, this is supposed to be like a huge replacement from the vessel. And in the beginning, in the beginning, it may seem difficult to try to manage and maintain, but after your second or third death with the Keeper, you might be given an understanding on how to use the Keeper. She's really good, and again, she's just fun. And if you love horror, this is it right here. I also forgot to mention that this character has some pretty sick art on her. Like, if you like horror, you're gonna see that, and you can also see some nudity in there. It's not big nudity. It's not big nudity, but you'll see it. Like when the video plays, if you decide to jump to that timestamp, you'll see some of that stuff. And if it makes you sick, don't download this character, I guess. But if you can stomach it, oh man, you're gonna have a lot of fun gawking at that art, man. It's fucking awesome. Terrifyingly awesome. Overall, this is a really good character and a really good replacement for your standard healers in the Darkest Dungeon. Just makes things unique and interesting. She's not OP, she's not busted, she's just right. So with that said, I thank you for watching. I know, like, I've been lacking on the content, but you know, everything's coming back to normal. And I only decided to making these videos because, you know, I had nothing to do besides play video games and do my other hobbies. But I was more into photography than anything. But since I couldn't go out, I was stuck doing this. And then I figured, you know what, I'll just make some videos. And when I did, that's when I started doing it. But since I'm going back to work, I feel like everything that I learned about making videos and stuff will now be thrown out the window. But I want to try to keep learning, keep editing, see what else I can learn. And since I'm a huge fan of the Darkest Dungeon game, I want to continue to make more content for the Darkest Dungeon. And since Darkest Dungeon 2 is around the corner, I want to be ready for it. I want to try to, like, you know, make content for just Darkest Dungeon. But if you guys have any other suggestions, I'm open to it too. But just so you know, it's all a hobby. I make pretty good money anyway with my real job, so it doesn't matter. Who cares? But I will say this though, I want to continue to make more content for the Darkest Dungeon stuff because we need more Darkest Dungeon content, and I know a few that has made Darkest Dungeon content. It's just we need more of it. So with that said, I hope you guys have a nice day. I hope everything's going well. I'm glad things are going back to normal, and I'll see you guys in the next Darkest Dungeon class mod review, and I'll see you guys later. Take care, and see you later.
The ground quakes. Gnawing uncertainty. The birthplace of dread. Great is the weapon that cuts on its own. Obliterated. carefully executed. How quickly the tide turns. success so clearly in view? Or is it merely a trick of the light?